So we are in Esther chapter 6 tonight, which is our 6th lesson. And we're going to be talking about Haman humbled. And so we've been looking at Esther. We've been looking at this like it is a story. Not that it is a fictional story, because it isn't. It's an inspired, true story. But as we've been looking at this, we've just kind of looked at it as as it would be that we are reading the story. And I don't know about you guys, but I've really liked it. And I've liked this chapter too. This is the chapter that it just seems like, if you're rooting for the good guys and you're waiting for the bad guys to fall, you're just like, yeah, Because Haman, he's not going to get what he deserves until the next chapter, but it's coming. It's coming in this chapter.
Yeah, I got a question to ask you on this.
Yeah.
I know it doesn't mention God in Esther. Does it mention any time where she prayed?
Well, it mentions prayer, yeah. She, when we go back to chapter 4 in verse number, I've got to get my glasses on. I think that's verse number 15. Yeah. It says, Then Esther sent this reply to Mordecai, Go gather all the Jews who are in Susa and fast for me. Do not eat and drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my maids will fast as you do. When it is done, I will go to the king. Well, actually, it doesn't say that she prayed. But
yeah.
With the fasting.
Fasting, yeah.
It is assuming that they prayed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know if it says in other places that they prayed, but prayer and fasting go hand in hand.
Yeah, because she fast indicate that she believed.
Well, yes.
Yeah. Would indicate that she probably did believe. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Before we get started with anything else, anybody else got any questions? By the way, that was a good question. That was a good question. Insightful. Okay. All right. So before we get into Esther chapter 6, let's flip on over to Proverbs chapter 16 and verse number 18. Yes, Proverbs chapter 16 and verse number 18. Okay. Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. While I was looking at this, I kept on thinking of that verse, and I thought that verse would be a really good way to kind of start this out, because when you think about that verse of pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall, we see this in chapter 6. We see it in chapter 7 as well. But here we have Haman's pride of what he did, not only to Mordecai, but really his pride before God as well. And I think that when we think about pride, we first need to understand that pride is a sin against God. And because somebody is prideful to God, then therefore they can be prideful to what God has created and say, I'm better than that, even though we're all the same. If we recognize that God is our creator and is creator of everybody, then that kind of eliminates the little bit of I'm better than you are type thing, right? Because, we look at ourselves as far as we're all God's creation. God is our superior. And so, we need to humble ourselves and have the fear of the Lord. And once we do that, then we don't have this idea about I'm better than you are type thing. Okay? So, getting back to Esther chapter 6, what we're going to be looking at tonight is how we're going to be seeing how God is going to be bringing Haman low. How God is going to be taking Haman's pride and turning it into destruction, his haughty spirit, and it's there right in the fall. Okay? So, looking at the first 3 verses, we see how God is going to start to bring not only pride to or humility to Haman, but we start to see a little bit about how he brings honor to Mordecai. Okay, and by the way, just to kind of refresh you real quick, Esther is the story where Jews are in Persia. We've got the Persian king Xerxes. Very first of the book, he wanted his queen Vashti to come and present herself in her beauty before him and all of his people. She refused, so he removed her as being queen, and then had a search for a new queen. Fast forward, Esther, who is a Jew, but she is keeping her Jewish identity hidden, was selected as queen. We see that Mordecai, her cousin, that raised her, is in the king's gate. Here is this man Haman, who is an ancient enemy of the Jews, and Haman, second in command to the king. Everybody is supposed to bow down and honor him. Mordecai isn't doing that because he is an ancient enemy to the Jews. Because of that, Haman devises this plot not only to kill Mordecai, but to kill all the Jews, and he kind of deceives the king in order to get it done. Okay? And so from there, Mordecai sends word to Esther, hey, Esther, you got to plead for us. Don't think that you're going to be safe just because of your position. She realized, I haven't been called before the king for 30 days, and if I just simply show up unannounced, it could mean my head unless he chooses to spare me. He does. Chapter 5, she says, come to a banquet. Haman, come to a banquet. She says, come to another banquet. Okay? And so as Haman is leaving the first banquet, here's Mordecai again. He gets mad at Mordecai, and he is now plotting Mordecai's death even before the destruction of the Jews. Okay? So there we go. There's the first 5 chapters. Okay, so chapter 6, verses 1 through 3. That night the king could not sleep, so he ordered the book of the Chronicles, the record of his reign, to be brought in and read to him. It was found recorded there that Mordecai had exposed Bigthana and Teresh, 2 of the king's officers who guarded the gateway, who had conspired to assassinate King Xerxes. If you recall, back in chapter 2, right when Esther was being crowned king, here's Mordecai. He uncovers this plot. He tells Esther. Esther tells the king. The king goes, takes care of it. Mordecai's name is recorded in the book, and that's it. At that point, we don't read about it anywhere else. We jump into chapter 3, fast forward 5 years, and there's Haman. Okay? And so now all of a sudden, there's that one little detail back there in chapter 2 that is coming back to light. And, think about this and think about God's plan, His timing, and everything that's going on. And that's kind of why I think that, when Esther was fasting and praying for those 3 days and 3 nights, God was giving her the wisdom of what to do. And so, here we talked last week. Esther has a banquet. At this banquet, she says, my request is that you come to another banquet. It's kind of like, well, okay. And I think that the reason why all this is going on is that it's giving God time to prepare Xerxes. Maybe he's working on his heart as far as his affection for Esther is concerned. But definitely, here is the thing right here where all of a sudden, that night the king couldn't sleep. Have you ever had nights like that? Man, I had a night like that last night. I woke up at 1:30. I went back to sleep. It was 2:30. Got up, went to the bathroom, laid back down. I was thinking, oh, good. I got a long time to sleep. Man, I couldn't go back to sleep. And so, I thought maybe I should get up. Maybe I should get up and read the book of Chronicles. Maybe that will put me to sleep. Have you ever gotten up, and thought, I'm going to do something so boring. I'm going to do something that normally puts me to sleep. And you go and you do that thing and it doesn't work. Has that ever happened to you before? Back when I was in seminary, there was this one older preacher. His name was Dr. Capel, and his nickname was the Mean Dean. I don't know how true it was, but he was an older, retired preacher, and man, when he preached, I just nodded off. I mean, just, right off the bat. And so I had some tapes, and, one night I couldn't sleep, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to put Dr. Capel in, and that's going to put me right under. Didn't work. Listen to it, and it's a good sermon. I actually learned something. But, it doesn't work. So here's the king, right? Here he is. He can't sleep. Why do you suppose he can't sleep? I think it's because God wouldn't let him. And why did he go grab those books of Chronicles? Well, I don't know that God told him to, but I think God knew he would if he wouldn't sleep, right? And so, what happens is this. Verse 2, it was found recorded about what Mordecai did, how he went and spared the king's life. Okay. So, in verse number 3, the king simply asks, what honor and recognition has Mordecai received for this? The king asked. So, you answer the question. What honor and recognition did Mordecai receive? Nada, zilch, zero, nothing. Not even a certificate, All he had was his name mentioned in a book, and that was it. Okay, but that's exactly what was needed. So what we see is that the attendant said nothing has been done for him. His attendants answered. And so what we see in verses 4 through 6 is now that God has kind of did that with the king, now all of a sudden God is going to be setting the stage for Haman's downfall, his humbling. Okay, verse number 4, the king said, who's in the court? Lo and behold, who is it? It's Haman. Now Haman had just entered the outer court of the palace to speak to the king about hanging Malachi on the gallows he had erected for him. What's that? Or Mordecai. Man, I wish I would have had my glasses on. Okay, hanging Mordecai on the gallows he had erected for him. His attendants answered, Haman is standing in the court. Bring him in, the king ordered. And so, man, you just talk about, if you think that you have had a very bad, horrible, awful day, all you have to do is just look at chapter 6 with Mordecai. I mean, it's not Mordecai, Haman. It starts out bad, right? Okay. Chapter 5, what does he do? He goes home. He's so angry. He's so upset about Mordecai that his wife, his friends advise him, go build that gallows 75 feet tall and have Mordecai hung on it. And so, you know that as the king's not sleeping, maybe Haman's not sleeping either, because he's thinking, I'm going to get there bright and early. I'm going to just, I'm going to ask the king to do this. King's going to grant it, and then he's going to be gone and done for and out of my life for good, and then I can start having this good day. And so, if you can imagine, here Haman walks into the court. Who's out there in the court? It's Haman. What's the king doing up so early? Send him in here. Okay. Hey, king. And then this is what the king says. It says, when Haman entered, in verse number 6, the king asked him, what should be done for the man the king delights to honor? What's going to be done for that man that the king delights to honor? Who's the king thinking of? Who's Haman thinking of? Okay. And so, what we see is, we continue verse 6. Now Haman thought to himself, who is there that the king would rather honor than me? So he answered the king, for the man the king delights to honor Have them bring a royal robe the king has worn, and a horse the king has ridden, one with a royal crest placed on its head. Then let the robe and the horse be entrusted to the one of the king's most noble princes. Let them robe the man the king delights to honor, and lead him on the horse through the city streets, proclaiming before him, this is what is done for the man the king delights to honor. Now let's talk about this. Great idea, wasn't it? Okay, why would he come up with this idea? Specifically, why do you think Mordecai is saying, or excuse me, Haman is saying, I want to wear your dirty clothes?
He wants to pretend he's king.
Okay, pretend as king. I don't know that it's pretend as king as much as it is imitate
Well, yeah.
being king. This is kind of, what's that?
I said practicing.
Practicing? Yeah, this is kind of done, in Old Testament days, that if you wore someone else's clothes, you really bestowed an honor upon them, because it's like, I honor you because I value you so much. I want to not become you, but I want to emulate you. I want to show my respect and appreciation. And so you can see that the king would kind of eat this up, right? Number one. And so that's one reason why Haman suggested it. But what's the other reason why Haman suggested it?
Because he wants to be paraded through the street on a white horse.
He wants to be paraded on the street, just, hey, look at him. And not only that, but have one of the noble princes lead him. So what does that tell you about the person that's going to be on the horse? He's higher than the noble prince, isn't he? He is second only to the king. And this is being done for the man the king wants to honor. And so if you think about it, does Haman need any riches? Does Haman need any sons? Because he's got 10 of them, right? Does Haman need any power? Well, actually, I don't think that he thinks he needs any power, because he's second in command. He's not going to be king, right? Without killing the king. But, so he's got money, he's got position, he's got influence, he's got power, he's got everything that people in that day could hope to achieve, right? And so what's left on the slate is just simply honor. Honor. Have everybody know the king honors Haman. The king thinks Haman is great and wonderful. And after all, you go back to verse number 6, he's thinking to himself, who is there that the king would rather honor than me? I mean, to use an old colloquial expression, I'm the bee's knees. I'm it. I am really something. And so, in Haman's mind, there can't be any other possible explanation for this, right? However, what we see is next is this. I mean, he sets his own trap there in the verses 6 through 9. And so then in verse number 10, that trap is just simply sprung. He says, go at once, the king commanded Haman. And so you can see Haman is just like, and he says, get the robe and the horse and do just as you have suggested for Mordecai. And not only that, do you see what else he says there? Mordecai the Jew. Oh, I mean, you talk about, here's pride goes before a stumble and a haughty spirit before a fall. It's like the bigger the pride, the greater the fall. Okay? And here is Haman. right here. Now, kind of stepping back and think about this, some things that we were talking about earlier in chapter 3 or in chapter 4 was, chapter 3, is how much did the king understand that this was the Jews, right? Because if you recall, when Haman comes into him, Haman doesn't say the Jews. He just says there's a certain people that need to be wiped out. Okay, and so we've kind of wondered, how much did the king really understand that the people that's going to be wiped out are the Jews? And I think that at this point he doesn't know that, does he? Because he knows Mordecai's a Jew. Otherwise he wouldn't have said Mordecai the Jew. And if he understood that the Jews were about to be wiped out with this edict and decree that Haman has devised, would he really want to honor that person like that? I mean, that's kind of a very foolish notion, wouldn't it be? It's kind of like, okay, what do we need to do for Mordecai because Mordecai discovered this plot? Okay, yeah, let's do something. But to go and parade him around all of the capital city, saying this is the man that the king delights to honor, and then all of a sudden, oh, but the king wants him dead? It really doesn't make a whole lot of sense now, does it? Okay? And so when I read that, that's kind of what I'm thinking, is that the king is not understanding that this edict is about the Jews. And he certainly is not thinking about it as far as Mordecai goes. But he just simply says, go, do not neglect anything you have recommended. And so, Haman, you had a great suggestion. You had a great thing, and so I want you to go and I want you to do every single little bit of it. Of course, Haman's thinking it's not what I had in mind, but what is he going to say at this point? Oh, wait a minute, King. I think I didn't really quite mean it that way. No, King says, go do it. And so he's going to have to go do it, or all of a sudden, he could wind himself into trouble as well. Okay? All right, so what we see in verse number 11 is that Haman does it. So Haman got the robe and the horse. He rode Mordecai and led him on horseback through the city streets, proclaiming before him, this is what is done for the man the king delights to honor. Now, here's another question. You notice that Haman said, get one of the most noble princes. So, who does the king get to do it? Haman. Is Haman related to the king like he's his son? No, he's not. So why would he be considered a noble prince? I think it's more of a position. I don't think it's the actual king's sons. That's like what we're thinking of as princes, but a noble prince as far as somebody who is, highly respected, somebody who is in the upper echelon. So if Haman is second in command to the king, and now Haman is the one who is leading Mordecai through the street, where does that put Mordecai in the pecking order all of a sudden, and where does it put Haman? Mordecai the Jew is now above Haman the Agagite. What do you think Haman is thinking about this? I mean, have there been times that, you were so mad, so embarrassed, so angry, it was just like your skin was on fire and your blood pressure was just boiling about something? I mean, can you just imagine what it would be like to be Haman this day? What's that? How embarrassed, how infuriated, everything, because not only do you have to go and parade Mordecai the Jew around, and everybody knows that you're the one that's got this order to kill the man, but yet you're parading him around, you have got to say these words time and time and time again. This is what is done for the man the king delights to honor. This is what is done for the man the king delights to honor. This is what is done for the man the king delights to... I mean, you know, you talk about eating crow. This is an unending buffet of crow. This is terrible, isn't it? Well, not really, but from Haman's perspective. You guys got any questions on any of this? Yeah.
I'm thinking, first, what is Mordecai thinking? Like, okay, you put me on this horse, but you're going to kill me in a couple weeks, or, you know, and also the people around in this have to be, before they said they were confused, they've got to really be confused now.
Right. Yeah, for the people. I think what Mordecai is thinking is God is at work.
Yeah, you know, I was looking over that about Mordecai, and it said that it indicates that he believed that God was Jehovah because he refused to bow down to Haman.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I definitely think Mordecai, I mean, he was a devout Jew.
Yeah.
Very much so. Okay. All right. So after this very bad, horrible day is over, you notice that as we look at verse number 12, it says, afterward, Mordecai returned to the king's gate. So, you know, if you that's just a really simple statement, isn't it? Here's Mordecai. He's at the king's gate. You know, here's Mordecai. He's placed on the horseback. Nothing's really said about Mordecai. Nothing's really said about, you know, what Mordecai's feeling, thinking, anything like that. After it's over, Mordecai does what? He goes back to the king's gate. You know, just as simple as that. But you notice it says, Haman rushed home with his head covered in grief and told Zeresh, his wife, and all his friends everything that had happened to him. Man, this next sentence, I mean, I almost have to laugh. It says, his advisor and his wife Zeresh said to him, since Mordecai, before whom your downfall has started, is of Jewish origin, you cannot stand against him. You will surely come to ruin. You know, I mean, it's like, what were you saying 24 hours before this? Right? 24 hours before this, they were saying, oh, build this gallows 75 feet tall. Let's put Haman up there on the tippy top of it. You know, they were cheering it on. And now all of a sudden it's like, well, since Mordecai's a Jew, your downfall has started and you're just going to come to ruin. So that's just the way that it is. I mean, it's kind of like, well, why didn't you mention that earlier? Why didn't you mention it back when the lot was cast, right? Because Zeresh is the one that is kind of planning all of this. Now, I could say husbands. That means you don't have to listen to wives, right? Okay. All right. I'm not getting any support here. I'm getting support. What? Jake, your wife's not even here. You can speak up and support.
It's being recorded.
Oh, that's right.
That's what I was just going to say. That's on YouTube.
All right. No, but I mean, Haman shouldn't have been listening to his wife, should he? Or his advisors. And so, as she is saying this, that, you know, before whom your downfall has started, he's of Jewish origin, you're not going to stand against him. You're going to come to ruin. Verse 14, it says, while they were still talking with him, the king's eunuchs arrived and hurried Haman away to the banquet Esther had prepared. You know, and we know what's about to happen. Does Haman, is he thinking what is about to happen? I don't think so either. I mean, maybe he thinks there is some kind of impending doom happening, but he is totally oblivious about what is about to happen to him in chapter 7.
It's like how could things get worse?
Yeah,
He was probably still thinking, okay, I'm still invited to the banquet, and
Yeah.
nobody else is.
yeah. But, think about this. If you just had the kind of day that Haman had, would you even be in the mood to go to the banquet?
I was just noticing that. It says they arrived and hurried him away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Haman, you gotta go. You gotta go.
Come on, Haman, let's go. And I mean, this is while they're still talking. Okay? Haman has just come home. His head is covered in grief, and then all of a sudden it's not like, oh yeah, it'll be okay, Haman. It's no, Haman, you're going to be destroyed. And then all of a sudden, oh, let's go.
To your destruction.
All right, a couple questions for you. By the way, do you have any questions about this? Okay, a couple questions. Thinking back to the very beginning of this chapter about Mordecai not being honored. And so you recall, chapter 2, he wasn't honored. Now all of a sudden, here he's got this honor. Okay? Thinking back to when Mordecai was not honored in chapter 2. If he was honored then, what would be different now in chapter 6?
Maybe the edict wouldn't have been put out. Maybe they wouldn't have had that edict, wouldn't have gone out and said kill all the Jews.
No, I think it would, because the king doesn't realize that he knows Mordecai's a Jew, but
Gotcha.
and that's 5 years. Remember, between chapter 2 and chapter 3 too.
Okay, gotcha.
So I think that edict would have still gone out.
Yeah. That would have made a difference though.
What did Mordecai say?
I don't know that Mordecai said anything with this.
Deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place.
Oh, okay. So it's not going to be Mordecai and Esther, is it?
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, if Mordecai would have been honored back when it happened, then when the king is not sleeping, he's reading the annals, Mordecai doesn't stand out to him. And it's
Mordecai
kind of
stopped
like,
a plot and then he was honored.
yeah,
Moving on.
yeah, we've done this. Could it be, and I don't know, but could it be that maybe one reason why the king is sleeping is because he's thinking, what have I done wrong, and are the gods going to bless me or curse me? I mean, in a pagan's mind, that would have been going through it, right? Because the whole idea about idolatry is I do this worship in order to have goodness or to avoid cursings. And so, he may have been kind of just worried about the future and thinking, okay, have I checked all the boxes and oh, wait a minute, there's a box that's unchecked. Well, let's take care of it. All right. But if it's been checked, it's like, why would Mordecai have been honored at this point? Okay. In fact, since Mordecai the Jew is being honored this day, then can't you see that how God is preparing the king's heart for what Esther's about to say in chapter 7? Okay. So here's a question for ourselves, and that is for ourselves, when we are put in positions where things are difficult and injustices occur to us, how better is it for us to just simply put it in God's hands and let Him work through it?
Very much better.
Okay.
Very much harder, but very much better.
Well, it is. We look at Romans 8:28. For God works all things together for the good of those who are called according to His purpose. And so, we have to believe that even though things may not be working good for us right now, that, it's better just simply, God, you work this out, right? Do you think that Mordecai, back in chapter 3, do you think that he was or chapter 2, do you think he was kind of upset about things at the time? Well, probably so. I mean, that stands for a reason. It's kind of like, man, I just did something great and wonderful and I didn't even get anything for it, As far as, like working or something, you do something great and wonderful and it's like, oh, nobody ever notices or recognizes it, right? Okay. So I think that sometimes, in our own lives, we need to kind of stop and think, hey, wait a minute. This life is unjust. This life is unfair. It is a life of sin. It's a world of trouble. So I'm just going to let things be in God's hands. Let Him work out.
Well, when you start thinking that way, you start falling into pride. When you start doing things for recognition, when you start asking, well, why wasn't I recognized for this? You start slipping down into pride. You shouldn't be doing the right thing for recognition. You should be doing the right thing for God.
Okay.
And Mordecai was doing the right thing.
Yeah.
He was protecting the king. Whether he agreed or disagreed with the king, he was still
Protecting a human.
Yeah, he was doing what was right, whether or not he was rewarded or not.
Right.
And that's all of us. We need to do the right thing, no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can look.
It's so easy to just, like, you do these things and you want to be appreciated, you want to be recognized, you want a pat on the back, you want a thumbs up, and it doesn't come, and then you start beating yourself up. Like, did I not do good enough? Did I not do the right thing? Did I not, why am I not getting this recognition? And you have to remember, if you're doing the right thing, then that's all that matters.
Yeah.
That you're doing what God has told you to do.
Well, I noticed we touched on it briefly, but after Mordecai was honored, he went back to the king's gate, which is the area of business. Basically, Mordecai gets this great honor placed on him, and then he goes back to his day job.
Yeah.
He just kind of goes back to it. And I think with Haman, the first thing Haman would have done is went to all of his friends and his buddies and his wife and talked about how great of a day he had.
Right.
And how the king thinks he's the greatest person ever and how awesome and wouldn't have done anything that day.
Yeah.
He would have gone on celebrating, and Mordecai's just like, I'll go back to work.
That's true.
Back to the
absolutely
servant's position.
true. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was thinking if I were Mordecai, I'd say, well, isn't there a cash prize that goes along with this? No. Okay. With Mordecai being honored, how much was it for Mordecai and how much was it for God's plan? So here's Mordecai's being honored, okay, right? Okay. So, here's this honoring Mordecai. How much of it is for Mordecai's honor? How much of it is that God has a bigger plan?
I think all of it's for God's good.
Okay. And I think, Jake, that kind of goes back to, Mordecai going back to the gate. It's just, this isn't about Mordecai, right? This is about what God's going to do to Haman as far as the story goes. And so that's really why we're not seeing anything about what Mordecai is thinking, feeling, saying, anything like that. It's just Mordecai's honor. It doesn't even say why he's honored as far as, hey, Mordecai, we're going to do this for you, and because of this reason. I mean, maybe Mordecai, they told him that, maybe he realized that. I'm not saying that at all, but as far as what's inspired for us is the recording. Mordecai is not the subject here. It's Haman. And so here it is, God's plan, is a whole lot more important than Mordecai's honor. Okay? And so when we start to think about our own lives, how much does it need to be about us and how much of it needs to be about God and His will? It needs to be about God. Because after all, God was responsible for all this for Mordecai anyway. And God's responsible for everything that we have in our lives too. Okay, talking pride and humility. How much, when we put our lives in the perspective of God's plan, how much humility do we have? And consequently, when we don't put our lives in the perspective of God's plan, how easy is it for us to have pride? What's that?
I said it's easy. It's easy to say, oh, look what I did, and forgetting that, this was part of God's plan, and this is by all God's doing. And it's real easy a lot of times to say, oh, look what I did.
Yeah.
Doesn't it say that all of my works are but filthy rags? Something about that. What is it? What are filthy rags?
What are they?
I mean, like it says. The
All
Bible
our good
says-
works are as filthy rags.
Is that what it says?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then it says the only thing that I have to boast in is Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
no matter how good you do, you have no right to pride. You have no right to recognition. You have no right to these things. Yes, you can be honored. Yes, you can be given these things as a gift, as a privilege. But you have no right to them. The only thing you have to be proud of is salvation.
Okay. And then when we glory in that, what do we really glory in God?
Right.
It kind of goes back to what we were looking at in Romans chapter 4 with Abraham. And, according to the flesh, did Abraham have reason to boast? Yeah, but not before God. Right? And so, we've always got to put God's plan into our perspective. And when we do that, then all of a sudden it becomes so much easier for us to humble ourselves before Him.
You start boasting about the things that you do for God and you're taking His glory and putting it on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
There's no more glory in God whenever you give yourself credit for what you did for Him,
Yeah.
which negates everything you just
Okay. Last question. Looking at verse 13 again, which is where his wife Zeresh said to him, "Since Mordecai, before whom your downfall has started, is of Jewish origin, you cannot stand against him. You will surely come to ruin." So, is it possible to thwart God's plan? Why isn't it possible to thwart God's plan? What's that?
So that's why it's called God's plan. He's in control.
Yeah, when the sovereign power of the universe decides to do something, what are you going to do against it? Nothing. Right? Okay. And so, Zeresh, very, very too late, is recognizing, wait a minute, this is part of God's plan, and there's nothing that can be done about it. Okay? She doesn't say it, maybe she doesn't realize it, but not only is Haman's life going to come to ruin, hers is as well. But here's something else, and that is that when we think about God's plans for us, nothing's going to thwart those as well. So the question is, what plans does God have for us? Go ahead, Marge. I know you're wanting to quote it.
Plans to prosper us, not to harm us. Plans to give us hope in the future. Jeremiah 29:11.
What are those plans? Are they in the Bible? I mean, is there something that we can concretely say in the Bible? Hey, this is going to happen.
Resurrect us.
Okay,
For us to be in heaven.
to resurrect us, for us to be in heaven.
For us to serve Him.
Okay. For the glory of God to be revealed. According to Romans chapter 8, Paul's convinced that all the sufferings and everything of this world was not even worthy to be compared to the glory that is going to be revealed in us. And so if you think about it, God does have a plan. He's got plans for our own individual lives, but we may not see it, or we may think something, it turns out something different, But as far as something that is God's sovereign plan, like the sovereign plan that He had for the Jews, yeah, we've got it. And that is that if we're saved, Jesus is coming again. We're going to be resurrected. We're going to be raptured. We're going to be ruling and reigning with Him for 1,000 years. And we're going to be with Him throughout the eternal ages. And those things are going to take place. And nothing is going to stop it. Nothing is going to change it. And we could just hope that maybe some little thing that we do in our life will have some sort of impact in that. Okay, that's all I got. Anybody else have anything?
One thought I just had is, if you want to be proud of something, you want to be recognized for something, there's probably somebody in the world who is doing that thing better than you.
Really?
So you don't get to brag about it.
Yeah.
And if there's not, Jesus did it better than you.
Yeah, that's true.
So you still don't get to brag.
That's true.
Are you suggesting we compare ourselves to God?
No, I'm saying that God is
Some of us aren't.
better than us.
That's an unfair thing.
Being God and all.
Being able to do all the things that you listed and meek enough to not.
Right.
You better believe that Jesus is faster than Usain Bolt, smarter than Albert Einstein, and you know what I'm saying? Capable of lifting up a mountain physically, but didn't. I know that's not what we were talking about. She brought it up, so.
I'm stuck on pride here.
All right. Well, upon that note, how about if we stop right there? Sound good? Okay. Dear Lord in heaven, thank you for everything you've given us. Thank you for your blessings. Thank you for your plan and your purposes. And thank you for including us in what you are going to do in the future. Lord, please help us to have humility. Help us to have faith in you and what you're doing. And Lord, please take our lives and use them for your honor and glory. Please give us the grace to not try to assume a place that isn't ours, but to always seek you having first place. Lord, please forgive us of our sins, and we ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.